Thank you for watching this session on our study in the book of Galatians. The book of Galatians is such a dynamic book. It's such a needed book in the life of a believer. So I'm going to ask you to do this. Will you share these videos with a friend of yours? Let them know what the book of Galatians is all about, and that's what we're doing. We're teaching verse by verse every weekday, teaching verse by verse through this wonderful book. Now, today we're in Galatians, the 4th chapter, verse number 9. Now, yesterday we talked about unbelievers. We talked about how unbelievers can't even perceive or know God. And it's because they're enslaved to things that are not God. In other words, they are captivated by things that are not God at all. They don't have the nature of God. But verse number 9 starts out with that wonderful 3-letter word, but now. Now. Right now. Сейчас in Russian. Pronto in Spanish. But now. Right now. Now, what's Paul talking about? He's writing to believers. And he's saying, now. But now that you have come to know God. What's the difference between the people of verse number 8 and the people of verse number 9? The people in verse number 8 didn't know God. They didn't even perceive him. They didn't see him. It's the Greek word eido. It just basically means to perceive. It's the lowest form of knowledge. But now the Apostle Paul says, you have come to know God, and that's the Greek word ginosko. And it's a word that's used in an association with a relationship with God. Now you've come to the place where you are in a relationship. You know God. You know God personally. You don't know him just from looking at a picture, but you actually are walking with him and you're talking with him and you come to know God on a personal level. And then the Apostle Paul goes on and he puts in here, or rather to be known by God. Now that's not really a very good translation. And yes, you did hear me just tell you that the New American Standard in this incident is not a good translation. But really, it should read something like this, and you have been known by God, or you are being known by God. You see, he's not saying either or. He's saying, you know God, and then he's adding on to, and God knows you. He knows you. He's in relationship with you. He's walking with you. And we see in these two phrases, we see the beauty of our relationship with God. We're walking with him. That's what Paul is saying to these Galatians. You're walking with God. You know God. But then he writes a very sad thing next. How is it that you turn back again to the weak and worthless elemental things to which you desire to be enslaved all over again? How is it? How is it? You know, have you ever had one of your children do something that was a mistake? They did it wrong. After you'd taught them how to do it, after you'd showed them how to do it, and then you go to them and you say, how did you get it wrong? Well, that's what the Apostle Paul is saying. How is it? How is it that you have turned back again? You're at a point where you're walking in a relationship with God, and now you have decided to leave that relationship. Now, I want you to notice something here. It didn't say that God turned back, did it? Paul said, and you turn back again. You have made a decision to no longer walk in a relationship with God. When you've known Him, you know Him by relationship, and now you turn back again to the weak and worthless elemental things. Now notice what Paul says here, how he classifies those things. He said they're weak, they're elemental. Weak things means it's something that has no strength at all. Here you've been in relationship with Almighty God, the God who's omnipotent, the God who has all power. And what have you done? You've turned back. You've left it for something that's weak, something that's without strength, that has no strength at all. You've turned back to something that's worthless. This word worthless is an interesting word. It actually means to crouch like a beggar. Here you've got God. You're in relationship with God, and He has all things. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, like my wife used to sing to my children. He's got everything. And now you're turning back and you're going back to this thing that begs like a beggar, that crouches and begs like a beggar, that worthless thing. And then he tells us, he says, you go back to the elemental things. The word elemental means the first things. In other words, you are going back to the very thing that enslaved you. Why are you doing that? How is it? How is it that you turn back again to the worthless and elementary principles to which you would want to be enslaved all over again? Why are you doing this? This is something that the Apostle Paul does not understand. It's something that I don't understand. I've seen people do this. In 47 years of ministry, I've seen people do it over and over and over again. Why? I don't understand. Paul doesn't understand. Now, tomorrow we're going to pick up and we're going to look at verse number 10. So I hope that you join us. Thank you for watching us today.